I want to thank everyone for coming out today. I know in spite of the weather, at least we got a few of you out here. Sean. All right. A couple of things I want to go over here real quick before we get started. Over here on the keeper table, we have voter registration forms. If anyone is out here that's not registered, I would ask you to please go over, get your registration, voter registration filled out. Some of you might say, well, our votes aren't counting. Well, that may be true. However, if you don't vote, it definitely doesn't get counted. So let's make sure we get out there and vote. Get your registrations done if they're not already done, and take care of that. And then the other thing, over here on the table over here, we have a bucket for donations. Owen over here, he spent 65 bucks? About 65 bucks today to help get the flyers printed up.
Take some home, spread them around.
Yeah, and we want to make sure we got 600 or so. If you can get them handed out, take them out there, get them handed out. They aren't specific to this. They're specific to I-594, which is, you know, we want to make sure that the public knows that I-594 is bad news. So, all right. Well, with that, I'm going to let Carrie take over here, and she's going to sing the national anthem. And then Andrew, her husband here, will do the Pledge of Allegiance. And our flag is over here.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Here's Thurston of Keepers.
How y'all doing this morning? Motivated? At least caffeinated? Alright. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, to get this started, we're gonna have Carlton Black. I'm not exactly sure what he's going to speak on, but we're going to let him kick it off.
Carlton Black. I am a free man. Woo! Yeah. Anybody else here? Yes, sir. Can I show raise your hand if you're a free person? Well, how do you know? It's difficult, isn't it? We use this word all the time, but do we really understand what it means? To be free means that you own yourself. It's not the same as liberty. Liberty means that you govern yourself. To be free person, freedom means self-ownership. Does that make sense to everybody? Yep. You understand why they're different? Okay. So how do you know that you own something? When do we cross that line? It's easy. You can sell it. This is publicly owned property that we're out here on, correct? I'd like to sell my part of it, please. Is that going to fly? Guess what? I don't own it. So, the way you know whether or not you own yourself, the way you know whether or not you're a free person, can you sell? Can you set the price for your labor? Can you set the price for your ingenuity, for your inventiveness, for your forthrightness? Does that make sense? Part of that is the ability to say, no, your price is not high enough for my labor. And if someone tries to take something from me by force, the ability to say no is also part of that same equation, isn't it? Does it follow that theft is a form of slavery? They're taking something from you without your permission, correct? Slavery, they take everything. They own all of your lifetime, all of your ingenuity, all of your perception, everything. But a part of that is still partial slavery, correct? So now, what are the gun control people? What are the liberal do-gooders trying to do to us? What is the end result of what they ask of us? Notice that they start by attacking you. What are you afraid of? They actually call you a coward. What are you afraid of? You don't need a gun. No one's going to hurt you. Right? But that's what they try. And it ends up with, when all those arguments fail, they get down to the end and they say, well, okay, we promise that nothing bad is going to happen to you. They make the promise, don't they? I'll get there. Somebody's stealing my thunder. But they make the promise. Nothing bad will happen to you. We will take care of you. Look, it says serve and protect right on the side of the police car. Does that police officer have a legal obligation to protect you? If you're a victim of a crime and you think it was because the police didn't protect you, go ahead, try to sue them. You will lose, as has everyone else who has ever tried. So you are on your own whether you know it or not. You are responsible for your own safety. And when they say, and that's what makes it so seductive, when they say, don't worry, nothing bad will happen to you, what they are saying is, don't worry, you don't have to be responsible, we'll be responsible for you. And isn't that easy? Isn't that seductive? Oh, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to be responsible. Did you ever notice that that's actually kind of feminine? Feminine. Kindness and helpfulness are what are feminine qualities. Strength and responsibility are masculine qualities. Now, granted, my wife is strong and responsible. And I try to be kind and helpful. But it's not the same thing, is it? Look, 90-something% of federal prisoners grew up fatherless. Do you think that's a coincidence? What's missing? Responsibility. It all comes back to responsibility. Is it possible to impose gun control on an entire country?
Not this one.
Back in the 90s, liberal do-gooders went to the Ukraine and said, what do you need all those guns for? What are you afraid of? There's nothing to be afraid of. All your neighbors are good people. Just give up your guns, give up your missiles, give up your weapons, even the stockpiles of small arms. You don't need that stuff. Just give that up. Look, we'll sign a piece of paper that says that nothing bad will happen to you. Just give us the responsibility. You don't need it. And what did the politicians in the Ukraine do? They said, oh, you don't have to be responsible? Well, I didn't know it was going to be that easy. Sure. Who signed the piece of paper? Well, we did, and the British did, and the Russians did. That's right. The Russians promised that they would not let anyone else invade Ukraine. Is anybody surprised? Do you know any gun control people that are willing to hang a sign in the front door that says this is a gun-free home? You understand where we are here? Own yourself and talk to those liberal do-gooders and help them to understand that the difference between them owning themselves and not owning themselves is whether or not they can say no. God bless the United States.
Thank you very much, Carlton.
I feel like I should stand up and say, hi, my name is Representative Graham Hunt. I own a gun. I own several, actually. And I just got to say thank you for coming out here. This is fantastic. Most of you I recognize that were here for Guns Across America not too long ago as well. You may not recognize me. I was incognito. Big cowboy hat usually gives me away, but sometimes not. Problem with not going first is that a whole bunch of people steal your thunder. So I'm going to touch on a couple of the things that I wanted to talk about today, and realize that some of the folks that went before me and some that will go after me will probably say a lot of the same thing. But we're kind of preaching to the choir out here, right? Everybody out here owns a gun or supports a gun owner. And one of the things that we talked about in the Second Amendment, right, and by the way, not being loud and vocal out here is not going to fly. I like interaction. Thank you, Carrie. I like interaction, so please, let's keep this lively. I don't want it to be like I'm preaching to you, because that's not the case. Although I am a pastor and I do preach. So that's another piece. So first, Second Amendment. And we talked about history repeating itself, but let's talk first about the Second Amendment. That very first part where it says, a well-armed militia. A militia, we heard it talked about just a little bit ago. Militia is not the National Guard. In fact, it's an unprofessional fighting force. Who is an unprofessional fighting force? I'm the militia. An armed citizen, right? And some of us are professionally trained, and that leads me to the next part that somebody stole a little bit of thunder on first, but I want to talk about a veteran. And if you are a veteran, I don't want you to just put your hand up, put it down. I want you to keep it up for a second. So if you're a veteran, please keep your hand up. The word veteran means something very special. As a 10-year veteran myself, Iraq and Afghanistan, the word veteran means somebody served. But in order for somebody to serve, somebody had to serve before them, right? So everyone that you see that has their hand up today, that means that there was a veteran that went before them. And that they have served. And that because they served, somebody is now serving who will be called a veteran later. And so I want to take a second. I'm going to set the mic down. And I'd love for us to give us just another round of applause, please. Thank you, because it's the veterans that gave us this rights that we have now, and our forefathers, and be able to write what they wrote. And quite frankly, what they wrote could have cost them their lives, and in some cases did. These are rights that are not only rights, but they're responsibilities, and the word responsibility carries a special effort as well, too. It doesn't just mean the right to have, I can go to the store and buy, it means that I should. And that when I do so, I need to act responsibly. So when we're talking about a Second Amendment right and history repeating itself, we're talking about the fact that criminals break laws, right? So if you take away the guns and you take away and you throw up all these background checks and make it to where everybody knows what you have, all that means is that you're creating a list, and the criminals will eventually get that list, and they'll know what houses they should break into and take guns. They don't buy them the way that everybody else does.
They shouldn't break into my house.
They shouldn't break into any of our houses, I would think. But all they're looking to do is to have the opportunity. If we think like a criminal for a second, and I'm going to break into a house, do I want to do it to a gun owner? Not if they're home, right? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but if I know you don't have guns, then what's stopping them? You heard the phrase that, police are minutes away. Well, my police officer travels 1,450 feet per second, usually. How much does yours travel? Depends on what you're loading. So, not all of those guys aren't here. Some of us are. Some of us obviously had some other things because this is an interim. But I can tell you there are some folks that are here that absolutely stand for the Second Amendment rights. Absolutely hear what you're saying. And I'm going to say, don't just let this be one of the only events this year. Let's have more. Show up to your candidates' campaigns. Let them see you, and even if they're not gun enthusiasts, let them see you. Show that you live in their district, and that they're not going to take it away. We talked about what a republic is, right? We talk about it in the Pledge of Allegiance. We touched on it a little bit when I forget the gentleman's name that was an author. What's his name? Sean. He talked about it a little there. I knew where you were, I just couldn't remember your name. He talked about it. He said at the very end, he spoke about a republic. What is a republic? A republic is a government that puts the responsibility from the people, right? Yep. We can't do anything without the people, so it's about damn time, pardon my language, about damn time that the people hold the government accountable. Yeah. Yep. The government should be held accountable. And you get to hold that accountability because votes do count. And if you have somebody in your district who is trying to take away your rights, you get to have a choice. You get to have votes, you get to have signs, because this is another amendment, isn't it? This is a freedom of speech. And I don't know if you know, but our own president signed into law not long ago anti-freedom of speech zones. Did you know that? He did. So if the president's having a bad day, the Secret Service has the ability to tell you to not stand on that street corner, and makes it a felony offense. Pretty soon, they're just going to keep on roading away to where you won't have that First Amendment right.
I won't comply.
Yeah, I won't either. And the Second Amendment right's not far down the list. And 594, how ludicrous is it? Does anybody here teach gun ownership, how to handle the guns? Anybody in here teach? I know we had some folks that were here that were teachers that I spoke with. So 594, does it make a whole lot of sense that you don't know how to use a weapon, but you want to go to class and use a weapon, and I'm going to take a handgun as an instructor and I'm going to hand it to you? You know what I have to do that? Background check. A background check and a transfer. So you're at a class, they're standing in Cabela's and doing a class, and I'm going to hand you a handgun because you need to know how to be able to handle it. So now we have to do a transfer and a background check. But it doesn't stop there, because you're not keeping the gun. I didn't sell it to you. Now at the end of the class, or if you're handling it appropriately and I need to take it back, you know what else I have to do? Another transfer. Does that make sense?
No.
Let me ask that again, because there was only half of it. Did that make sense? No! And the way that the whole thing went down here in Olympia was the people that supported 594 got to talk. The people who didn't got put in another room.
That's right, that was us. Yep. That was us.
And I was unfortunately not on that committee, but I was here and I was watching, and I'll tell you what, that was just garbage. And people need to know this. So tell them, go out there and talk to them, hold signs, exercise every one of the rights that we still have today, and let's fight and keep them every single day. And tell people, you don't have to want to own a gun to be a supporter of the Second Amendment right, though I think you should. You don't have to want to own a gun. You don't have to have a gun in your home. But don't try to take the right from me.
Yeah. Right.
I will be a well-armed militia. Thank you.
Stand strong, Connecticut!
Thank you all.